I think that when it comes to the Star Wars mythos, quite a few people tend to agree that Attack of the Clones is a weaker entry. Well, at least before the Disney takeover anyway, thanks to some of its acting and daytime soap-style drama. Now, I'm not gonna lie, there are some things about Attack of the Clones that I like. I really like that Blade Runner-style chase in the futuristic city. I mean, yeah, it was CGI'd to the max, but I think at this point we had to more or less accept that George Lucas and CGI was now an inseparable pair. Like, you have Romeo and Juliet, Lennon and McCartney, Beer and Pizza, George Lucas and CGI. I also really like Samuel L. Jackson as Mace Windu, and his purple lightsaber. I thought that was pretty cool. So in 2002, the second Star Wars prequel came out with Attack of the Clones, with this entry promising to be a love story, where a now grown-up Anakin Skywalker, played by Hayden Christensen, starts to fall in love with Padme, played by Natalie Portman, all while he's on a secret mission to protect her, and Obi-Wan Kenobi, played by Ewan McGregor, is caught up in a battle with Jango Fett because of clones or something? Hey, it's okay because Christopher Lee turns up and he makes any movie awesome. So it's time to learn about the conflict of love in the Jedi Order. And sand, and how it gets everywhere, as we look into the Star Wars movie that has most fans saying, yeah, I guess it's okay. As we look into 10 things that you didn't know about Attack of the Clones. Let's check it out. Number 10. The Reluctant Storyteller. George Lucas wasn't exactly rushing back to his desk with gusto and enthusiasm to write Attack of the Clones. After the release of The Phantom Menace, the largely anticipated prequel got a bit of a beating from fans and critics alike. Suddenly the Star Wars brand lost some of its confidence, and proved that although previously it was observed as being flawless, Star Wars was not immune to scrutiny. In fact, Lucas was so reluctant to return to helm his next story in his space opera, he didn't even write Attack of the Clones' first draft till just 3 months before principal photography was to take place, and the final draft wasn't complete until just 1 week till the shoot was to start. Needless to say, just like my hair, he was wearing it a bit thin. Probably feeling the strain and needing some help, he sought help from British screenwriter Jonathan Hales, who Lucas had previously worked with, as Hales had written some episodes of the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles TV show, who incidentally round about that time also worked on the script for the Mummy spin-off The Scorpion King. Just going by articles I've read with Lucas's hesitation, it feels like Attack of the Clones wasn't written out of love or creativity, but more of a race to the finish line. Number 9. A classic Star Wars character was originally going to be part of the clones. So Attack of the Clones sees the origins of the Clone Wars, so naturally we needed to see wars and clones. The concept of the Clone Wars got mentioned all the way back in 1977, in the first Star Wars movie, when Luke and Obi-Wan discussed the Clone Wars. However, it was while writing the second movie, The Empire Strikes Back, that Lucas envisioned that none other than Lando Calrissian to be a clone, coming from the same clone society who were responsible for the Clone Wars. However, this idea of Lando being part of the clones was then switched to Boba Fett, with it being revealed that the clones were part of a secret army set up by the hands of the Republic, and that the clones grew from the DNA of Boba Fett's father, Jango Fett, played by Tamara Morrison, who incidentally is pretty awesome and badass in the movie, just putting it out there. I actually really like the Jango Fett character and think that he's a highlight in the film, although admittedly, it would have been interesting seeing an army of Lando Calrissians running around getting into battles. Number 8. The Face of Anakin. This is sand. It's coarse and rough and irritating, and it gets everywhere. And if there's one person who really doesn't like sand, it's 20-year-old Anakin. So the most important piece of casting when it came to Attack of the Clones is who could play Anakin Skywalker. No longer a kid, but a young Jedi Padawan in training. Well, many young actors were considered and even auditioned, including Colin Hanks, Paul Walker, Joshua Jackson, Devon Sawa, Ryan Philippe, and apparently even Leonardo DiCaprio met up with Lucas to discuss the part, but ultimately decided not to star in the movie. Hayden Christensen, as we all know, got the part, supposedly because it was felt that he and Natalie Portman looked good together. He previously starred in The Virgin Suicides and Life as a House. And I have to mention, a lot of people dogpiled on his performance in Attack of the Clones and felt like he was whiny and bratty and just didn't do a good job. I don't think it was Christensen's fault though. He was doing the best with what he got. Case in point, in the movie, after meeting Padme for the first time, he kind of sulks to Jar Jar Binks and has a tantrum where he's all like, "Oh, this isn't fair, Padme barely recognized me." But if you watch the previous scene, literally just a minute earlier, you can see that Padme clearly recognizes him by the way she, says his name, while her face lights up. So what's with all this, "Wah, she didn't notice me"? Is it because Anakin felt that she should have given him more attention? Yeah, look, maybe I'm wrong, but writing like that really didn't help the character. And I guess it does make him come off as whiny, self-important, off-putting, and, well, petty. In fact, so petty he comes across as being quite weak. And, dare I say it, slightly pathetic. Look, I don't mean to sound mean or anything or negative, it's just that this is meant to be Darth Vader. Are we meant to be looking at Darth Vader and thinking, wow, this guy's really weak and pathetic? But once again, in no way is this Christensen's fault. Also, why is he confiding in Jar Jar? Was Anakin actually expecting Jar Jar Binks to console him? Yeah, there's a problem where if in the scene Jar Jar Binks comes across as the level-headed one. Furthermore, I think if you go back and look at the scene where Anakin is at the base of the Sand People, where he then unleashes his rage, now that was brilliantly performed by Christensen, and it's up there with some of the greatest acting moments in the series. Snippets of brilliance like that shows you that Hayden Christensen is indeed a good actor. Number 7. A long time ago with a boy band far, far away. So there are many faces who return to Attack of the Clones who previously appeared in The Phantom Menace, including Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan Kenobi, Natalie Portman as Padme, Samuel L. Jackson as Mace Windu, Ian McDiarmid as Palpatine, Frank Oz as Yoda, and Anthony Daniels and Kenny Baker as C-3PO and R2-D2. There are also some new faces that appear, including Christopher Lee as Count Dooku, Jimmy Smits as Bail Organa, and Tamuera Morrison as Jango Fett as mentioned. However, Attack of the Clones was going to have a very bizarre cameo, or rather cameos, as the boy band NSYNC were brought onto the set to film a scene as background characters, at the insistence of George Lucas's daughters who are NSYNC fans. Yeah, it doesn't get any more early 2000s than that. Look, to quote the nostalgia critic, just because you can have someone in your movie doesn't mean you should. I can remember that when the news hit out that NSYNC would be starring in Attack of the Clones, there was lots of jokes. I can even remember watching a comedy sketch show. Now, it might have been SNL, I'm not too sure, but in the sketch, they were reenacting Star Wars scenes with NSYNC dancing in the background, be that comedians dressed up as NSYNC. However, the scene with NSYNC was cut out of the movie in post, supposedly due to all the negative backlash the announcement of NSYNC starring in the movie got. So I guess George Lucas said bye 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 to the prospect of featuring an intergalactic boy band. However, they apparently can still be seen in the background in one shot. That's not the only bizarre cameo. In the bar scene, we see this woman giving sexy eyes to Anakin Skywalker. This was played by an actress called Fiona Johnson, who previously played the woman in the red dress in The Matrix. And according to Wikipedia, this character is actually meant to be the woman in the red dress, acting as a sort of Easter egg cameo crossover. Yeah, she's literally meant to be the same character. So, what's the connection between NSYNC and The Matrix and Star Wars? Well, I have no idea. Someone must have had too many death sticks. Number 6. Moving to a land down under. Unlike the previous 5 Star Wars movies, which had their principal photography taking place in England, this time the production moved to Australia in order to film most of Attack of the Clones, namely Fox Studios in Sydney. The studios were new at the time and had previously been used to film The Matrix. It would have been cheaper to film in Sydney, so the production would have gotten more bang for their buck. The shoot took place between June and September 2000, and while shooting Attack of the Clones, Ewan McGregor was also filming Moulin Rouge at the studios, and some of the sets for Moulin Rouge were apparently reused for Attack of the Clones. Being in Australia, I can remember there was a big buzz and excitement at the time that a Star Wars movie was actually being filmed here in Australia. Now, we didn't have too many big Hollywood productions taking place here at that time, especially a Star Wars production. I can remember reading a magazine article, which had a sort of who's who of Australian and New Zealand actors who turn up in Attack of the Clones, including Jack Thompson, Rose Byrne, and Joel Edgerton. In fact, Attack of the Clones is full of background characters and side characters being played by Australian actors who at that time were in TV shows and commercials. While filming Attack of the Clones, it was decided to make Yoda entirely a CGI character, as opposed to the past where he was a puppet. And Samuel L. Jackson really wanted a purple lightsaber, which went against the usual grain of Jedis having blue and green lightsabers, with Siths having red ones. But Lucas obliged, where we got the reveal of the new purple lightsaber. In an interview with David Norton, Samuel L. Jackson claimed that he had the words "bad motherfucker" engraved into his lightsaber, a reference to his character's wallet in Pulp Fiction. The scene showing the battle at the droid factory was added at the last minute, with its conception being described as rushed, with it being filmed in the year 2001, 6 months after the movie's initial shoot. Other locations used for filming include Tunisia, Sevilla, Italy, Vancouver, China, and San Diego. Number 5. Alternative title joke. It's not uncommon for Star Wars movies to go under different working titles in order to throw off the press during filming, in order for the shoot to take place without any plot leaks. Something that has often been the bane of Lucas whenever he's been making Star Wars movies. An example of this is Return of the Jedi, which went under the false title of Blue Harvest, and The Phantom Menace, which went under the working title of The Dollhouse. Well, Attack of the Clones had the working title of, wait for it, Jar Jar's Great Adventure. This was actually an in-joke within the production, a reference to the negative reception that the Jar Jar Binks character received from the previous movie, The Phantom Menace. I always get the feeling that the fact that Jar Jar wasn't embraced by fans but rather loathed actually hurt George Lucas a little bit. But at least he can make a joke about it and laugh it off, which is always the best way to handle such things. I can remember there being a lot of anticipation for the new Star Wars title. For the longest time, fans were just referring to it as Episode 2. And I can remember when the title Attack of the Clones was revealed, there was a sense of, oh, is that it? I think that, like The Phantom Menace, people just didn't think it sounded very Star Warsy. Now, 20 years later on, it's cemented itself in pop culture, and we can all accept the title absolutely. And I don't think it's a bad title, but I do think that casual viewers who weren't fanatics were probably left thinking, yeah, who are the clones and why are they attacking? But to be fair, the movie is about the rise of the Clone Wars, which we had heard about in previous movies. So the clones had to be mentioned in the title, I guess. Maybe it would have been received better if it got a title like, say, Rise of the Clones. You know, something like that. I don't know. I'm just a bald guy with a camera. Number 4. One character in particular was written out. In the previous movie, The Phantom Menace, we meet the heroic character of Captain Panaka, played by British actor Hugh Quarshie. Now, the character was written into the original script of Attack of the Clones, with him set to return. However, before accepting the role, Quarshie wanted to read the script, but Lucas didn't want to do this out of fear of the script getting leaked, so Quarshie turned down the offer to reprise his role. So the character of Captain Typho was created instead. Also, this time round, the character Obi-Wan now has a mullet and a beard. In The Phantom Menace, Obi-Wan had short sticking up hair, and Qui-Gon Jinn had the long hair and beard. And in this movie, Obi-Wan has the long hair and beard, and Anakin has the short sticking up hair. I guess the logic is, training Padawan Jedis have short spiky hair, and their teachers go full Woodstock with their long hair and beards. However, in some scenes, you can kind of tell that Ewan McGregor is wearing a pretty unconvincing wig that just sort of stands out as it looks really artificial. This is because, originally for the role, Ewan McGregor grew his hair and a beard, and after initial filming, he shaved his head and face in order to appear in Black Hawk Down. And during that shoot, he was required to come back to do reshoots for Attack of the Clones. So to make up for his short hair and no beard, they stuck a wig and fake beard on him. So any scenes where McGregor's hair looks fake are all part of the reshoots. In addition to that, the alien race of the Kaminoans are introduced in Attack of the Clones, who are alien creatures that more resemble the traditional image of the alien greys. This is because Lucas designed them after the alien beings seen in Steven Spielberg's 1977 UFO movie, Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
Well, The Phantom Menace previously featured E.T., so I guess it makes sense.
Number 3. Improvised romance. I think one thing Attack of the Clones gets a lot of flack for is the romance subplot between Anakin and Padme. I think people found it corny and cheesy and generally unconvincing. Personally, as I've previously mentioned, my biggest issue is they kind of have a Days of Our Life daytime soap feel about them. The problem is, the love scenes take up a huge chunk of the movie. It is the core of the film, and so if we don't believe in the romance, we don't really believe in the movie. I think George Lucas is an excellent writer. Truly brilliant. I think he writes character story arcs and philosophies and struggles perfectly. But in my opinion, he probably isn't the best at writing romance. And that's okay, we can't all be good at everything. Yes, I know we previously had the Leia and Han romance, which was brilliant, but those movies had other creative forces adding input. And it seems that even George Lucas himself may have been aware that maybe his romance dialogue wasn't the best. As in the scene where Anakin and Padme are having dinner, that scene was entirely improvised by Hayden Christensen and Natalie Portman, as George just wasn't sold on the romantic dialogue that he had written. And I will admit, in that scene, Portman and Christensen do feel more natural and sincere.
Another issue that I have is that I don't think Hayden Christensen and Natalie Portman particularly have great chemistry in Attack of the Clones. I know, I'm sorry, that might be controversial, but I do think that they have great chemistry in Revenge of the Sith. I mean, yes, in that movie there still is the daytime soap style of dialogue, but you can generally feel their connection and romance that time round. So maybe they just needed to learn to work off each other better.
Number 2. Deleted scenes. So as with all other Star Wars movies, Attack of the Clones has its fair share of deleted scenes. Pretty much all of them I think were wise to cut out. Like a scene at the start where after the assassination attempt on Padme, she then confronts the Senate about it, and calls what happened a declaration of war. Yeah, I get what this scene is trying to do, but I always found these political scenes to be boring and drawn out, and having this at the start just makes the start of the movie really drag out, rather than getting to the action quicker. And this blue lady sitting next to Palpatine, yeah, does someone want to wake her up? There's a scene where Obi-Wan tries to identify the poisonous dart by the services of this funky droid, who I like to call Spiky Mohawk Droid. There's a very interesting scene where at the archives, Obi-Wan spots the head statue of Count Dooku, where we actually learn more about him, where he's even given a backstory, which actually sets up Dooku's later appearance, rather than him just randomly turning up out of nowhere. There's a scene where while in Naboo, Anakin and Padme go to Padme's home. It is fascinating seeing Padme's family. I mean, they are kind of a big deal in the mythology, as they are Luke and Leia's grandparents and auntie, and seeing R2-D2 play with the kids is very cute. But it's just not executed very well. It's like Padme and Anakin walk in and it's like, "Oh, you're just in time for dinner, let's eat." And Padme's sister is like, "Oh, Padme's never brought a boyfriend home before." Yeah, it's cheesy and kind of goes back to daytime soap territory. This whole sequence at Padme's home feels very earthbound. It's just too human. It doesn't feel like a strange alien universe seen in the previous movies. So although the concept is interesting, to me personally, it's just not executed very well as mentioned. So I can understand this returning home subplot to be removed. Yeah, Attack of the Clones is the first Star Wars movie I've spoken about where I can honestly say that they did the right thing cutting out all these scenes. But if there's one scene that had to go back in, it'll be the scene where Anakin and Padme confront Count Dooku, who calmly puts them in their place with sinister calm, where we then see them get tried in court before being placed into the arena. But it's not a scene that I feel really needs to be there. Number 1. Fourth highest grossing movie of 2002. When Attack of the Clones was released in May 2002, it made just shy of $654 million on a $115 million budget. So although from the outside in, the movie's performance looked very successful, which it was, let's be honest, it did make a lot of money, this was still something of a setback when it comes to Star Wars standards, as Attack of the Clones was the first Star Wars movie not to be the highest grossing movie of the year that it was released in, with Attack of the Clones being beaten by Spider-Man, Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers, and Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. Also keep in mind that The Phantom Menace made over $1 billion. So yeah, there seemed to have been a disturbance in the Force. The movie got mixed reactions from critics. It got praised for feeling more like a proactive, action-packed Star Wars movie, but the acting and dialogue was criticised. The romance story plot was also criticised as being flat and cliched. However, Attack of the Clones did get praises for the lack of Jar Jar Binks. Now, I have to be honest, when I first saw Attack of the Clones, I actually really enjoyed it and got sucked into its action and exciting set pieces. I found it to be a lot more enjoyable than watching The Phantom Menace for the first time. This time I wasn't bored and I was invested, and it did feel like a return to form. However, upon rewatching the movie a second time on DVD, all the movie's problems were kind of glaring at me in the face. Namely, just how artificial and synthetic the CGI environments feel, the monotone way of talking, and as I've mentioned plenty of times now, the daytime soap dialogue and acting. And so yeah, when not seeing the movie on the big screen and getting taken over by the hype and spectacle of it all these issues were now obvious and standing out like a sore thumb. And it's been like that since. I really want to enjoy this movie more and go back to that glory of when I saw it for the first time, but I just can't. It's like once I've noticed these issues, that's it for me, as if the magic illusion has been broken. But I don't hate Attack of the Clones. It does have more energy and excitement than The Phantom Menace. And I can see what George Lucas was trying to do. The build-up of tension and drama with the way the characters react with each other. I just feel like it was done a lot better in Revenge of the Sith. Much, much better. And for what it's worth, Attack of the Clones couldn't have been awful. I mean, after all, it did have people coming back in droves 3 years later to see the conclusion. So to me, is Attack of the Clones a good movie, or is it a bad movie? Well, Attack of the Clones just is. And that's all I can really say about it. So take with that what you will.
Yeah, look, I want to be optimistic. I want my episodes to be a fun, positive experience. It's just that Attack of the Clones isn't my favourite. But it does have its moments that I do enjoy. And maybe it is a movie that I might come to appreciate even more in time. So rest assured, I haven't given up on it. So I'll keep watching it and see if, like Revenge of the Sith, if I can eventually appreciate it more. Anyway, I'm Minty, and remember, just say no to death sticks. See ya!
And just for the heck of it, here are some AI-generated pictures of Hayden Christensen with sand. Yeah, you're welcome.